Hello and welcome to another episode of Smokey and the One-Armed Bandit. We're at the track. It's night prac on Saturday for the comp on Sunday, and I've already managed to break the car.
You would think that's just like a one-way valve.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking more regulator.
Well, that was a bit of a hurried up intro. I took Smokey out for its first session and went off the track, and for some reason completely lost all of my power steering. Got it back to the pit garage here, and I still had the pump running, so I thought the pump must have turned off, but no, the pump was still running. A bit more digging, we realised that we probably have a blockage in the power steering lines, so we ripped it apart, and there's a ball valve in one of the bolts that holds the line to the rack, and that ball valve had completely jammed up, meaning that we couldn't actually get any fluid to the power steering rack, and therefore no power steering. So we've got the drill out, drilled that out, got rid of the ball valve. I've gone for a test up the road, she's working now, so that was a very hectic first session. Otherwise in that session the car was actually great, but yeah, that was a bit too much of a scare a bit early in the weekend, so hopefully it's a bit more smooth sailing. Anyway, time to go out for practice 2, or at least my practice 2. Well, that was the second and probably last session for tonight. I got a good feel for the car now. It's so much better than the 180. It's good doing a layout that I'm really familiar with in the 180 to really compare it. This thing, you can just chuck it in the corner so much harder, get on the gas, and it just rips the tires apart, and yeah, so much faster. There's a little bit of an issue with the power steering where every now and then if I flick the car real hard, the power steering seems to lock up. So I'm probably gonna have to drive around that for the minute. I don't know if it's the pump or the rack or really what it is, but I can drive around that without too much issue. I'll just have to be mindful of it. So overall, it was a bit of a stressful night with the power steering issues, but now that we've got that sorted, I apparently have to go to dinner. Now that we've got that sorted, the car's driving really well. I'm pretty stoked with it. So we'll come back tomorrow and see how we do in the comp. Well, good morning. This is Sunday now, so we've got the event today. We've got about 3 practice sessions and then all the battles, so looking forward to it. Right now though, I'm in this really bloody long hallway inside the ridges, and I think I'm gonna go get myself some breakfast. So I'm gonna go grab myself some bacon, get ready for a driver's brief, and yeah, go chuck the car on the track, have some more fun. we're 2 practice sessions deep at the moment. The car's going really well. I am driving around with a little bit of the power steering issue that I've got when it goes really hard from lock to lock. It binds a little bit, so we'll figure that one out, but I'm driving around that okay. Got some decent chase runs in then, and I'm just really trying to push that turn 1 entry as late as possible and hopefully do pretty much all of it on the gas and no braking. But it's a bit sketchy because you only need to go a little bit too hard and you end out in the dirt, which I did a couple of times also. I ended up having tyres that were down to, well, basically wires, and went for a little adventure and got my first little bit of damage down the side of the car. Just a couple of little dents from a fiberglass front bar that had been left out there after someone crashed. So that's a little bit of a bugger, but these things are going to happen. Got a new set of tyres on the car, one more practice now, just to dial in, particularly the turn 1 entry, that's really key, and also just get my chasing up to par. So looking pretty good. Sun's out, go for another sesh. So that's all my practice done. The car's still working really good. I'm getting more and more comfortable with the steering and what situations it sort of freaks out and which ones it doesn't. So I'm transitioning a bit more fluently and on power. Now, yeah, just waiting for our comps to be announced and who we're battling with. Did have our first casualty though. I didn't actually hit anything, but the lens for my tail light, I think it may have seen what its future held and decided to jettison, so that's gone, but the rest of the car's pretty good. On to battles.
Close to contact there coming into turn 1. It's like Derby had to shut it down. Over there in the run-up, so Tate's all by himself. But really unfortunate there, because I was looking up, so it was going to be...
So that's my first battle done. I could hear when I come down the straight then that Adam's car was misfiring. I still chucked it in there just in case, but his car, yeah, pretty much didn't have any drive, so he pulled off to the side. I kept going. It was not the tidiest run after that, unlike you know, normal FD comps. This isn't necessarily a you versus him, so I was still getting scored. So I had to finish the lap out well, and I did an okay job of that. On my lead, I was okay with that. It was sufficient, but not great. I really needed to go a bit deeper into turn 1, and then I might have had a better score, but the score was still reasonably good. So I think I'm sitting currently 12th, and now I've got my next lot of battles.
Charlie's Cody in the chase. He's off. He is buried it. He's out in the sand. He's gone over back to Victoria. He's made it halfway there. E46 is BMW. No longer CA all day, now it's LS power. LS the world. S15 is a car.
Well, that's my second battle done. Lead run was decent, better than I did previously, so I got a decent points on that. And then my chase run, he was a bit shallow and I struggled to catch him through the first corner, and I was a bit untidy from then on. So I did okay. I'm in 13th. I'm up against Mr. Tom Hemmings, and this is going to be top 16. I'm 13th, so I've really got nothing to lose, going as hard as I can. So I'll see if I can get some good points and maybe just make it into the top 8.
Once again, shadowing that quarter panel. Tom Hemmings drops the tire on the outside. I went for the wrong Tom that time. Yep. There's smoke and dirt and debris everywhere. Clean up on aisle 1.
Well, that was a hell of a ride, firing off the outside of turn 1 at that kind of speed, throwing dust everywhere, getting it all through the cabin. So bit of an adventure. Overall though, with that battle, I was really happy with my chase run on Tom. He did go off 3 wheels off at one point, and I followed him out there because the lead car is the clipping point for the chase car in this series, regardless of pretty much wherever they go. So followed him out there and got the best points that I got all day on that run. So pretty stoked with that one. On my lead run, I knew that I had basically a run up my sleeve. They drop your lowest scoring run, and I had 5 decent runs up to that point. So I knew that I could go really hard and not lose anything, but if I did a really good run, I would essentially gain a whole bunch of points. It's a bit of the system over here is a little bit different. It works well, but I don't think half of the drifters that actually compete in it actually know how it works. So I won't bore you guys with those details, but basically I had a run up my sleeve to go as hard as I wanted, and if I pulled it off, it would net me some pretty good points. Unfortunately, when I chucked it in, I overcorrected, took a bit too much angle out of the car, and what I'm noticing at the moment is the rear tyres spinning and being on the gas is basically what holds you on the track, but if you don't have enough angle, it tries to fire you forward and not into the corner, and that's the issue I had. So I was trying to get a bit more angle on it. You can hear me sort of just feathering the throttle, but wasn't enough. I fired off the track and yeah, got dust everywhere. So that's the way it goes. I kind of knew, and I told Tom that's the way it may end because I was going to go for broke, and well, I'm broke now. So we didn't quite get what we wanted there, but in the end it didn't cost me too much. I got 13th over the day, which is pretty much where I was most of the day, so that kind of makes sense. Obviously driving through the steering situation made me quite tentative when it comes to transitions and chasing, so getting that fixed, I think we would have done a bit better, but teething issues with a new car, it's going to be what it's going to be. So that was my weekend. Now I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the car and what we're going to do a bit better to make Smokey more competitive. So although that event was good for a shakedown comp, there's still a lot of work to be done to the car to make it good in normal comp and going forward. So lots to work on. Probably the biggest one, and the one that I whinged about throughout the day, was the power steering. The issue I'm having there is I don't think that the Astra pump can keep up on really quick transitions. What the steering does is you flick the car from, say, left to right, and as the wheel's spinning, I actually can't really adjust how much it's self-steering because the steering is essentially not powered. So it's a real push to actually adjust the speed in which the steering spins when you're going from one side to the other. That creates issues where you spin out because you can't adjust what inputs you've got with the car. So we're going to have to do something about that. I suspect at this stage it's going to involve a standard LS pump, an underdrive balancer, and probably a power steering cooler to keep that thing alive, because those things don't like going in stock form. So that's probably the next thing we need to do, and probably the most important. We also need to do a radiator overflow because I've noticed some issues with that where it loses a whole bunch of water, but obviously no overflow means it can't regain it when it's cold again. So need to do that. I've got some sensors and things on the engine that I need to hook up and finish. Obviously all of this wiring hasn't been covered in yet, and I kind of doubt that I'm going to get time to do that before the next round because it's only 6 weeks away, and I've put off a lot of other stuff in my life to get out to that round, so I need to get that stuff done too. So that'll probably stay the way it is, but I want to hook up the oil temp sensor and a couple of other little bits and pieces. Obviously it needs a good clean because there is dust everywhere at the moment. Also need to get some wheels that fit better. These ones are good, but these ones back here I borrowed from Stewie and their offset isn't amazing. I don't actually need them, I just don't like the way that the car looks on them because it looks really narrow at the back. Otherwise, I need to also wire in the sequential shifter, which is just nicely in there. The actual shifter itself and the handbrake worked amazingly. I'm really stoked with them. Super easy and very simple for me to do when I'm driving. I don't have to worry about going across the gate or anything like that. The only issue I did have is in the run-up quite a few times, I forgot what gear I was in and ended up going into the first corner in 4th rather than 3rd. And I haven't wired up the counter for the dash, so that's why I can't quickly just glance at it and make sure I'm in the right gear. I was actually having to count gears from the line all the way through the speed gate. So I'll have to wire that up to make sure that I'm in the right gear. Once I'm driving, it's fine, but it's just sort of the lead up. Sometimes I'll pull a gear and forget and think that I'm in, 2nd, but I'm actually in 3rd. So we'll do that, wire that up. Otherwise, probably mess around with the front end, chuck some tow out into it. It's currently got no tow at all, and I know with the 180 I quite liked 20 mil of tow out, so should try that. Also mess around with the front tyre pressures because the front tyre pressures do make quite a difference to the balance of the car. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to fiddle around with. The next round, I don't think I've got any practice other than the actual comp practice itself between now and the next round, mostly because I'm completely broke. So we're going to have to do all that stuff and hope that it works for the next comp, but I think we should be pretty good. May take this to Cars and Coffee in the meantime. And then I think after the next comp, there's going to be a high-tech round, which I'd really like to chuck some semis on the rear and try and go out and run with the big boys. So that's what's coming up in the next couple of episodes. So I'll see you guys on a future episode. Cheers.